Hello and welcome to the Business Spotlight interview series. Host Sonali Nigam, and today I'm joined by Neal Dodd, MD at the Letterbox Consultancy Limited. Hi Neil, thank you so much for joining us.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Thank you. Would you like to kick us off with a brief background as to who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. I'm the managing director at Letterbox Consultancy, and we are primarily a specialist door drop agency in the UK, which means that we plan and buy media on behalf of our clients, which is unaddressed printed material that is delivered through people's doors. We naturally have an involvement in buying print and addressed mail as well, but door drop is our specialism. And personally, I have a background of sort of the agency world and sales promotions and ultimately working on behalf of brands to acquire new customers.
Wow, interesting. You know what, Neil? I was studying about you while going through your LinkedIn, and I was amazed with the amount of work that you've done over the years. So, can I quickly ask, what do you attribute your growth to?
Well, I mean, as a business, as a company, we have had quite a successful sort of recent maybe 5 to 10 years where we've continued to grow in an industry really that's shown some decline. And I think that's down to a few things. I think one of them is understanding where we are a specialist agency and we work in one very defined media channel. I think we have a better appreciation for kind of where we sit within the wider marketing picture and the wider media landscape now. So we are more attuned to having conversations with brands about their media plans as a whole and where we fit within them. But as a business, the biggest thing we've probably improved is our productivity, and ultimately we are a fairly small business. We don't fill our days with internal meetings and paperwork. And actually, we're able to provide our clients with a really quite quick and thorough service, which I think is hard to beat. And we ultimately we get through a lot more work each day than perhaps we used to. So that's probably been the biggest thing for us.
Wow, I think quick service is what every customer looks for. Quick and nice service, rather. So, what can I mean, if I can ask this, what would you say are the biggest learning as an owner of the business running successfully?
Um, well, I think there's a few things. I mean, I think we've as we've grown. I mean, we've grown from a family business into a specialist agency, and that has meant bringing in people, obviously, outside the family. So the biggest thing from that side is really the type of people that we've employed and how we've come about those people, and they are, ultimately it would have been impossible to grow without them, and um, most of the people that we've brought in and kept are people that we have some experience of working with in the past, but ultimately fit our philosophy of how we go about things. And as you said, being friendly and being quick and offering a good service is a big part of it. And the people that work with us are really just, it may sound cheesy, but effectively have become an extension of the family, and therefore are very much part of that philosophy. So I think that's probably the most important thing, is the people that we've brought in and surrounded ourselves with.
Right. So you have highlighted the important aspect about the people that you've brought in, the people that you were surrounded yourself with, and who are employed with you. So, can I ask what qualities do you look for in employees, and how do you foster a positive and a productive work environment?
Yeah, well, I think I mean the ability really to be helpful and serviceable is important, and I mean that's kind of a base layer of anyone that we would look to bring in would need to fit in with the way that we speak to and deal with clients, and I think we're known in the industry for being that type of company. But in addition to that, I think probably the biggest skill we would look for is resourcefulness. I mean, not sure you necessarily, particularly when you work in a fairly niche area like we do, you wouldn't necessarily expect to employ people who understand what you do straight away.
Right.
But you bring people in who can pick things up quickly, but are just generally resourceful people and will pick up something and take it and run with it, and probably only need to be shown once how to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's, I guess, it's the ability to take briefs and problems from clients and just fix them, and that's what a lot of our clients are looking for, really, is just someone to take the particularly agencies that we work with where they have clients themselves. They're really looking for someone to come in and solve a problem and give them an answer that they can pass on themselves without too much pain.
Right. I was stuck when you said, this is a niche business. So when you
Mm.
have, you know, y- when you have niche in particular kind of business, I'm sure the challenges must be different as well and maybe unique in their nature. So what challenges are you facing currently in business, if I can ask that?
Yeah, of course. I think the part of the reason it's quite niche now is because of the fact that, I mean, we work in a print media business, and print, there's no shame to say that print's share of spend has decreased over the years, and the advent of ultimately the internet and digital channels has meant that print is sharing a smaller part of the pie now, and it's not the cheapest option for brands. So there are a lot of brands and there's a lot of agencies that don't necessarily understand it. So we work in a world where actually it's become less common for people to use it on scale, and that ties in with the challenge as a business, really, is working with brands and agencies that potentially have not necessarily ruled print out, but don't really understand it. It's seen as an older and a media channel, and it isn't necessarily their go-to option. So our
Mm.
biggest challenge is making sure that it's on the radar for people, and that it's part of their consideration. And the way that we do that is by being as modern as possible in terms of showing how the channel can work in a modern media landscape. And I mean, I joined the industry kind of when it was probably coming out of the back of a fairly archaic way of working in terms of, mass distribution and covering sort of large swaths of the country with material, and now we have to be a bit more clever about it, a bit more scientific, and the channel is used strategically by a number of tech brands, for example. But it's about embracing that change, I think, and just being a bit smarter with how you position the channel in front of brands when they're considering their media choices.
So you're just putting the brand maybe more uniquely out there, maybe more modernizedly, so that people start using it. That's what I could understand. And yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
mean, there are still things that our channel as a print channel can do that other channels can't, and and
can't.
and there are plenty of brands that, as I say, tech startup brands, big retailers, things like that, that where they need what we do within their media plans, because it fulfills a problem, and it fulfills a purpose and solves a problem for them. But it's about being a bit more strategic. It's sort of gone are the days where you can just rely on people just
Yeah,
buying it because that's what they do, and now you
yeah.
need to actually give them a proper business case for why they need the channel in their plans.
Completely agreed on that. And well, my next question is around this because you said, how strategic you have been, and that's how you have to be to meet the current demands. So, what are your aspirations for the company in the next 5 years? Where do you see yourself?
Well, I mean, as I say, we've had a period of significant growth, which, against the backdrop of declining industries, has been really great and is a great achievement. And I think I'd like to think that can continue. But I think really what we're trying to ensure is that as a business we have grown up to the extent that we've caught up with our growth in the way that we work, and the practices that we use, and our internal processes. So I think a large part of the next 5 years for us is building on some of the growth that we've had in terms of the planning software that we use and the strategic processes that we've put in place that it's some of which we've had to play catch up quite quickly because we're working with brands that we weren't working with 5 years ago. So I think it's just about continuing to become more have a more solid base of that kind of modernized approach, which will just enable us to work with more and more big brands in the coming years.
Perfect. This is very interesting. So, we've talked about your business and the challenges and where do you see yourself, but one important aspect is personal aspect. So, can I quickly check and ask this? How do you put that perfect balance between your personal life and demands of running a business? I mean, how do you do that?
Yeah, I mean it's a good question. I mean I think there's things that we do that help, but there's also the overall business culture, and particularly in the agency world, it isn't uncommon for people to be working all sorts of hours into the night, and it's always been. I'm a real believer that work shouldn't take over your life, and
Yeah.
so from moving away from me in terms about the people that work with me, I'm quite clear that when they're on holiday, they're on holiday. When they're on their weekend, they're on their weekend, and that shouldn't involve work. So there are, as a business, we're quite clear that that's our policy. It doesn't mean that every now and then you might need to adapt and there might be some sort of problem that you need to fix, but generally speaking, work is work and and life is life, and those two things are separate. From a
Wow.
personal perspective, yeah, I mean it does. You do think of, obviously it's your business, so you don't really switch off, so to speak, but I think there's things you can do that can help in terms of just having a clear divide between work and life, and sometimes that's easier said than done. A lot of people work at home now and work in their living space, and I do the same in many respects, but there is a clear definition between work and personal life, and I've got two young children, and when I leave my
Wow.
desk and go into the house, I'm not going in with my phone in my hand looking at my emails. I'm going in to spend time with them. And so I think you can draw a distinctive line between the two, but ultimately it comes from the culture of the business, and
Yes.
that's my responsibility to impart onto our staff really is that they shouldn't feel the need to be working in all the hours God sends, because if that's the case, then there's probably something wrong with your business.
Wow, that's interesting. The way that you draw that line between the personal and the professional life, that's just brilliant. A complete switch off. And that was really good and inspirational as well. So, and I'm sure our audience have learned and picked so many things. So, is there any closing remark before we wrap up that you would like to share with my audience? A golden nugget, maybe.
I think only that. I mean, we've gone from having no non-family members of staff to having four, and I think that I've read this and I've heard it said a lot, but it's easier said than done. But I think the biggest thing is to find good people and trust them, um, because it would be easy once you start hiring more and more people to start having more forms and more meetings and more, ultimately more micromanagement.
Yeah.
We've not done that deliberately. We've not done that. We've brought in people that are great and that we trust, and it's worked for
Wow.
us. And I think that would be my biggest bit of advice. Would be don't let the hiring of more people change the way that you operate as a business, and let people work with freedom. If you hire good people, then let them get on with it.
Trust the people, hire them, and let them be free in the way they work. That's
Yeah.
interesting. Thank you so much, Neil, for your time today. It was great meeting you and learning about your journey. And to everyone watching, I look forward to see you in my next episode. Thank you so much, Neil.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.